Hi there. Welcome to just a short video on insights for marketeers and for communicators. And this relates specifically to the Strength of Purpose Report 2020, which was released just very late last week and talks about brand communications. So 2020 has given us a very interesting global backdrop. We have the COVID pandemic, which has not only shut down economies the world over, but also caused economic crises for a lot of businesses and individuals. We have civil unrest in a number of societies based upon racial injustice and approaches to trying to educate and correct from that. But interestingly enough, what we do have that is coming or becoming increasingly important is businesses are starting to take a stand. And I feel that this is something that's important. And the Strength of Purpose report is looking at the role of businesses when they take a stand, and also how we as consumers react specifically to that. So the global study, it is a global study, 2020 Zeno Strength of Purpose report, a first of its kind, 8,000 consumers surveyed, 8 countries, including United States, Canada, United Kingdom, France, China, India, Singapore, and Malaysia. So really great to see what we're experiencing on the ground here being captured as part of a global study. What is purpose? There are effectively 8 key elements that we look at when we as consumers are understanding a company's purpose. This is beyond making profit. This is about giving back to society. It is also about being an ethical component or contributor to what is happening in society. So the 8 key elements are fair treatment of all employees, products and services that reflect the needs of people today, ethical and sustainable practices, a very important one. Now we start to see support for important social causes. So this is about businesses that are going behind and giving support to causes that they see in society that have meaning for them specifically, or have meaning for their customers and stakeholders. It also includes the creation of job opportunities, creating diverse and inclusive corporate cultures, advocacy for issues, and having strong values. If we think about Malaysia, we can all identify a few businesses absolutely instantly in our mind which fit into this. But how does this relate back to consumer behavior? Interestingly enough, in Asia, the priority element was products and services that reflected the needs of people today, whereas the North American and European approach was fair treatment of all employees. I think it's fair to say that we know that in Asia, or at least in several societies in Asia, we still have a long way to go with employment relations, but that is something that is changing for the positive every day. So when consumers think a brand has a strong purpose, this is some things that happen. First, they are 4 times more likely to purchase from that company. That means the attraction of that purpose is enough to sway their mind to say, I'm going to buy from these guys, I'm going to buy from this brand because I know they're looking after society. Consumers are 6 times more likely to protect or defend the company reputation. Great for during crisis management scenarios because you already have a digital fortress of consumers who are going to back you up. The fact that they are 6 times more likely says a lot about their integration with you as a brand and what that means. They are 4.5 times more likely to champion or to recommend the company to family and friends. So versus a brand which is simply just a product for them, a brand that has meaning and contribution to society, they are 4.5 times more likely to actually bring in additional business or to help in that process. And finally, they're 4.1 times more likely to trust the company. And what we need as brands is to get our consumers trusting us, embedded within or embedding our brand within their lifestyle, but making sure that we are always living true to that. So let's just do a quote here. Every company needs to ask itself, not just what's the ROI of a commitment to purpose, but also what are the risks and costs from not taking it seriously. So this comes from Alison De Silva from Zeno, Director of Impact, I believe. The key point here is we can work through the process of not supporting a cause or not having a social momentum, a social impact as a brand. But what are the costs of that not having it? What are the costs of that to us or to each individual brand? In the end, even though we may be moving forward, we are moving forward at a slower rate than what perhaps our competitors with a purpose are actually having compared to us. So this gives us, or leads us into what's termed purpose paradox. 94% of global consumers, companies must have a strong purpose. So globally, and not just here, but globally, people are saying that we want our businesses to have a purpose that is beyond profit seeking. Yet, only 37% of those consumers believe companies actually do. So let me ask you a question. For those of you who represent brands who are listening to me today, what is your company purpose? What are you there in the world to impact on and to change beyond making a profit for your business? Effectively, it has never been more important for companies to, one, articulate their purpose. That's always been part of the genre of storytelling with B2C and even B2B communications. But we have to add a level that has been increasing over the years, but now has become almost at the forefront, to consistently demonstrate that particular purpose through not only the stories, but through how you operate, how you support issues, and how you engage with stakeholders. Last week, we saw examples of an issue that Starbucks had with respect to staff members wearing a particular t-shirt. How they, or how the brand supported that issue initially, and how it was communicated and how it was engaged was not well done. It improved, but they learned the hard way because people who expected a higher standard from that brand were disappointed with the way in which they offered on-the-ground support for the particular cause. So this is something that's important. It is taking or being positioned at the forefront in our consumers' minds. We also have the concept of cancel culture. I think a lot of us talk about it, but we don't necessarily understand it, or not necessarily understand it as fully as we could. The scenario with cancel culture is about people rejecting things that don't sit with their values. So let's have a look. 76% of global consumers are willing to act against a brand whose purpose they disagree with. And there's a few ways in which they act against this. They either stop buying. I have a friend who stopped buying Pepsi Cola back in 1986 because of something they do. To date, she still hasn't purchased. We'll come back to that in a minute. Switching to a competitor's brand, or discouraging others from buying or supporting. So this may simply be negative reviews online, or it may be actively telling people, guys, this is not a brand you should be engaging with, and explaining the rationale and the reason for that. Interestingly enough, this was strongest amongst the younger generations. So 88% of Generation Z, 85% of millennials are more likely to act against a brand. Their primary actions being sharing opinions with family and friends. Now, interestingly enough, those closer to my generation, and I'm not quite a boomer yet, but damn close, boomers and more matures are more likely to act with their wallets than they are likely to act with their opinions. For local significance, let's get some Asian and Malaysian data. The inclination, overall, the inclination to act against a brand has been stronger in Asia. 92% in China, 89% in Singapore, and 91% in Malaysia. When I look at it, it reminds me of Asian tough love parenting. It's simply about, you do that wrong, tough, out. And there is that mentality that perhaps Asia is a little bit less forgiving towards its brands. And you might see that in some of the things that have happened recently where staff or brands have made a misstep and they have gone viral simply for a misstep, even to consumers and prospects who really weren't part of their original core stakeholder groups. So it's really interesting to see. Anyway, this afternoon, I'm going to be listening in on the full launch of this and looking at the ramifications. And I hope over the next couple of days, I'm going to be able to bring you some additional perspectives on what we've got. Thanks, and I'll catch you later.